Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this tutorial we'll focus on a complete walkthrough of a Python list data structure. So what's a Python list? A Python list is a sequence data type that allows us to combine several items in one comma-separated data instance. A list can contain data with same or different data types, as you see on my screen here. And it's also mutable, which means that we can alter the size and content of a list object in Python. Creating a list in Python is very straightforward. You need to put all the items separated by commas into square brackets. Keep in mind that you can put different data types together, so integers, floats, booleans, and even other lists. Here are a few examples. First, let's create a list with some string elements. Very simple. Next, let's create a list with some numeric elements. This will include both integers and some floats. And we can also create a list with mixed data types. So here it includes a string, an integer, a float, and a boolean. We can also create a list with nested elements. In the examples above, each item in the list only contained one value. What if we want to store two values per item? Python lists allow us to do that too. For example, you would like to make a list of products and their prices. And your data is the following. Price of an apple is $1 and price of a banana is 70 cents. In order to add two or more values per item in a list, we need to put them in square brackets and separate with commas. It will look like having a list inside of a list, which we call a nested list. Everything here is pretty straightforward, and it covers how we initialize lists. If you want to create an empty list, you can simply initialize it using square brackets, but without passing anything into it. An important and very useful property of a Python list is that it is an indexed sequence, meaning for a list with n elements, the first element will have an index 0, second element will have index equal to 1, and so on all the way to n minus 1. Using that, we can access elements from a list using their indexes. The index can also be reversed, meaning that the first element will have an index equal to -n, second element index equal -n plus 1, and all the way to -1. To make it easier to showcase, take a look at the list that I've created right here. So if we started going in order, we start from apple having index 0, banana with index 1, orange with index 2, and pineapple with index 3. Alternatively, you can start going backwards, and here the pineapple will have an index of -1, orange with index -2, banana with index -3, and apple with index -4. So since we've already created that list, we would like to print out the first element from the list. We know from before that it has two indexes, 0 and -4. So we can try both and see if the output will be the same. Now running this code, in both cases, we see that the output is apple. We can also find indexes of elements in a list. They can simply be found by using the .index method that takes some value as a parameter and finds its index in a given Python list. Let's say here we wanted to find the index of banana element. Let's say here we wanted to find an index of the banana element. Let's run this code. Perfect. So we've correctly identified that the index of a banana element in my list is equal to 1. In the section before, we showed how you can access an item from a Python list using its exact index. In this section, we will show what to do when you want to access a range of items. For example, the first two or the last two. Recall that for retrieving items from a list using an index, we place that index in square brackets. So if we wanted to access the first element, we'll just place 0 in square brackets. Slicing is using the same approach, but instead of passing a single index value, we will pass a range. So a range in Python is passed using the following syntax. So we would have some from value, and then we would have some to value. Both of these should be integers when you use them. Slicing without specifying them will just return the full list. Let's take a look. So we see the exact same list printed out as the one that we have defined. Now you can slice with only specifying the index from which you would slice. And what it will return is the items from the index you specified until the end of the list. For example, you would like to print the last two elements in the list. Remember that you can use both index and reverse index. So the following two lines of code can produce an identical output. Let's take a look. We see that in both cases, we printed out the last two elements of the list that we have created. You can also slice a list with just specifying an index until which you would like the slicing to be performed. What it will return is the items from the beginning of the list till the item of the index that you specified, not including that index. For example, you would like to print the first two items in the list. Remember that you can use both indexes, the sequential one and the reversed one. The following code will produce the desired output. In both cases, we have the first two elements of the list printed out. Notice here that we specified our index to 2 and -2. The way list slicing works in Python is that it goes through items until the specified 2 index, so in our case 2, and includes all items up to that index, but not including the item under the 2 index. Lists in Python have a .sort method, which allows us to sort the items in the list. In case your list contains strings, this method will sort it in ascending alphabetical order. If your list contains numerical values, integers or floats, it will sort it in ascending order. Please note that if you will have a list with multiple data types, .sort method won't work and will produce an error. Let's take a look at a few examples. So here, for this example, I changed banana and orange in the list. Now, let's see what happens when we sort it. Okay, it returned a list with the strings ordered in alphabetical order. Now let's see how we can sort a list with numerical values. Let's replace this with 1, this with 3, this with 2, this with 4, and run our code again. Perfect. The list returned is in the ascending order. In both cases, we created unordered lists, and after applying .sort method, when printing out the list, it was sorted. If you want to sort your list in a descending order, you can use the .reverse method. It works exactly the same way as .sort, but your output will be in descending order. For example, now the list returned is in descending order. In this section, we will explore how to add new items to an existing list. There are two list methods that will help us with that: .append and .insert. They both can add new items to a list, but have a major difference. .append adds items at the end of the list by appending them, where .insert allows us to choose a specific position or index in the list where the new item will be added. Let's work through some examples. So we have our list here, and we would like to add a new item. And our new item will be mango. Now, using the .append method, we will add it at the end of the list. Let's take a look. Perfect. As we expected, the code appended Mango at the end of our list. So we started with our old list with 4 items. Now we want to add Mango. We create a new item, assign Mango to it, and append it to our main list. When we print it out, we see all 5 items in the list. So it works perfectly fine. The fundamental difference from the above approach with the .insert approach is that in this case, we're able to choose the exact position, location in the list where we want to insert the new item. So the list method takes an index as well as an item as a parameter to it. For example, our new item is Mango, and we would like to add it right after Apple in the list. Knowing that the index of Apple item is 0, we should use index equal to 1 to add an item right after it. So here's how the code would look in this case. So we'll switch this to insert, and we'll place an index 1. Now running this code, we see that it worked as we expected, and Mango was added or inserted right after Apple using the correct index. In this section, we will explore how to remove items from an existing list. There are 2 list methods that will help us with this: .remove and .pop. They both can remove items from a list, but have a major difference. .remove removes items that you specify, and there has to be an exact match, whereas .pop allows us to choose a specific position or index in the list of the item you want to remove. Let's take a look at some examples. So here, let's say I want to remove banana from the list. Now, using the .remove method, it will find an exact match in the list and remove that item. Let's take a look. As you see, we dropped banana from our list. Removing items from a list using index has a small difference. The difference from the previous approach is that instead of specifying a value of an item, we're able to choose the exact position or index of an item you want to remove from a list. For example, you want to remove orange from a list. Knowing that the index or the position of orange item in the list is 2, we should use index equal to 2 to remove it from the list. Here's an example. As you see, we dropped orange from the list. In this section, we will explore how to change an item in a list. For example, you have an existing list of items and you want to replace one of them with a new item. How do we do that? In Python, it's really simple. All we need to do is specify the index of an item in a list that we want to change and then assign a new value to it. Recall our list, which has apple, banana, orange, and pineapple. Now, let's say I want to replace orange with mango. We know that the index of orange element in our list is 2. So all we would do is we would assign a new value to that particular index. And let's take a look at my list. Perfect. We just replaced orange with mango. In this tutorial, we explored an introductory walkthrough of Python lists and their methods, which are important to learn as they're used in many areas of Python programming. Feel free to leave comments below if you have any questions or have suggestions for some edits. Please subscribe to the channel, like the videos, and stay tuned for more upcoming Python programming tutorials.